Thinking about refinancing your car loan? Well, today we're going to talk about when that can actually save you some real money, when it may not be worth it, and what you should do before you think about applying. We are here with Jon Paradise with Town and Country Federal Credit Union to talk a little bit more about this. Such a great topic.
It is, and you think of, everybody thinks of February with President's Day and all those great, and there are some good ones, but I think people are more in the new car or getting a different car mindset in March when spring is here, and I think that's when it really opens up. And so it's a good time to think about it, and it may or may not be a great move for somebody.
Well, and there are a lot of things to think about before you
Absolutely.
go this
Yes.
route. And actually, I just want to remind anybody who is watching right now, if you have any questions at all related to refinancing your car loan, just ask them in the comments. Jon and his team, they're going to help you out and get you those answers.
Yes, we'll respond and put people on the right path to get the answers that they need and let them be in a position where they can make an informed decision and determine what's the best course
what's
of
right
action.
for you.
Right.
So let's just start with the basics. What does it mean to refinance your car loan? Like, what's happening?
Well, it's much different than refinancing a mortgage or something like that. Much less cumbersome. There's usually no or little fees involved. Less than $100, and it's usually because of a title. Resubmitting the title if there's any fee whatsoever when it comes to refinancing your car. And what it's doing is it is doing what it says it's doing. It is changing your auto loan with a different rate, different terms, and it's doing away with the existing one that you'd already had. And usually when you refinance your auto, whether it's a new or used auto loan, it's putting you in the goal is to put you in a better financial position with that auto loan to give you, a better rate, a better term, both, and ultimately saving money in the long run.
Well, and I think that ultimately that's what it is. Are there
Right.
any other benefits that might come from refinancing?
It might free up some cash, depending on how much you have left to pay on it. But the real benefit is usually getting a better rate, better term, and
Better monthly
ultimately
payment.
possibly lowering that monthly payment and possibly saving thousands over the course of the term of the loan.
You alluded to this, that there's not necessarily a best time when it comes to refinancing an auto loan, but how do you figure out if it's a good time for you?
Well, depending on you need to take a look at what am I paying right now? How much longer do I have to pay? See, that's the other thing. If you reset your term if you're refinancing your auto loan. So if you only have 12 to 18 months, maybe even 24 months, depending on what you're paying and what your rate and your monthly payment is. If you only have that much time left, you really need to think long and hard about refinancing it because you're probably going to restart it at, 24, maybe 24-month term, but probably more likely 36, 48, even 60 or 72-month term. And of course, that's going to end up paying you more interest. It'll lower your payment. But if you're that close to paying it off, it probably doesn't make sense.
Kind of think long and hard about that.
Yeah.
You're talking about interest rates. When you say you've gotten your car loan and interest rates were high, maybe they've come down.
Right.
So refinancing in that case, how could that help you?
Again, let's assume that you have more than 24 months left on your payments. That will help you because interest rates on auto loans, just like they have been for a lot of other things, have been higher than we've seen them in a long time. And of course, the cost of autos, new or used, have gone way up.
Way up.
So your monthly payments have gone way up as well. Combine that with the interest rates, the higher interest rates, and it's a perfect storm as far as much more cost being laid out for auto loans. So when the interest rate, and they are coming down, the interest rates are coming down, and what that means is it could potentially, say you were paying 6.5 when you bought your vehicle, and now we're offering rates as low as 4.24%. So that's
Significant.
that's 2+%, 2.25% at least. That can mean thousands of dollars in lower interest payments, and a much better term for your car. So when you're talking about that kind of a difference, it could be even higher in some cases, depending on your credit score, et cetera. So that's a lot of savings.
I'm glad you said credit score, because what if the interest rates haven't really changed that much, but your credit score has? How can that help?
If your credit score has changed, obviously we're assuming in a better direction, you can request a one-time rate reduction at some financial institutions, Town and Country being one of those that offers that. We want your credit score. Most financial institutions and lenders want your credit score to go up, because that means you're much better risk when it comes to loaning someone money. The higher the credit score, the better the risk is for a financial institution. So, it behooves us to encourage you to raise that credit score. So you can request things like that, and that can again say that will cost you nothing to request a one-time rate reduction, usually in many cases, and it will put you in a better financial position right off the bat.
I think too, in terms of when you're getting your car loan, you're buying it at a dealer, often for convenience, you're like, great, I'll take whatever you have. Why could it maybe be advantageous to do a refinance after the fact?
Well, usually you'll get a better rate and a better term payment-wise. If you refinance, not all the time. That I don't want to say always. We don't use those words. We don't talk in absolutes. But usually you do it. We see a lot of people do it for convenience. A lot of people, I think, sometimes don't realize you can get pre-approved for an auto loan at a financial institution, so you can have what you can afford already in hand, and you've got your financing, and you take it into the dealer and you're good to go. I want to do my financing through Town and Country or whatever. You can also request at the dealer. I think a lot of people don't necessarily think of this. This is who I want to finance my loan through. Most dealers have relationships with a ton of financial institutions, so they can do that. They can make that happen. Let's say that doesn't happen in your case. You finance it through the dealer, and you realize it's not the best deal. I'm going to take it to who I have my relationship with, and oftentimes you can save a lot of money refinancing it. And I think people forget that, so many people are focused on refinancing their mortgage that they forget that you can refinance your some of your other debt as well, autos being one of those big ones.
Well, and a lot of people will refinance their mortgage to get some money out.
Right.
What about if you do have equity in your car?
You can take a loan on your car, on the equity in that car. A lot of financial institutions will get creative as to how they can get you some money out of that when you refinance, and I think those are things more as the price of autos have gone way up. Yeah. That's a much bigger asset than it used to be. So any equity that you have in that, you can usually parlay into giving you some cash that will help in other areas.
Now, let's kind of think on the flip side, right? Like, when is it maybe not a good idea to refinance your car?
Well, we talked about depending on term, how much do you have left to pay on it? If you don't have that much longer to pay, and you're pretty locked in, if it's not going to save you much money, you probably don't want, or any money, probably don't want to go through that hassle. It's not worth it. If your credit score isn't great, or isn't even in the good category, you may not, because you financed it, maybe you got certain incentives, or maybe there was a special offer that didn't look at credit, when you got that auto loan. So maybe the credit score wasn't as big a deal as it would be if you were refinancing or considering refinancing when it comes to rate. So I think that is something that people need to consider, definitely. And I also think they need to look at what they're paying right now. And if their payment is something that has not hamstrung them financially, and if they're on a good roll and it's not going to make much of a difference, then probably you shouldn't refinance. One thing I think you need to really look at is have a conversation. Most lenders, most financial institutions will walk you through, this is what it would look like if you refinanced. And it doesn't cost anything. It's not going to cost you anything to have that conversation. And who knows, maybe you're leaving money on the table. Those are the types of conversations that I think are important to have. I think it's worth reaching out. It's worth saying, hey, I'm thinking about, this is what I'm paying right now. I'm thinking about refinancing. What kind of rate could you give me? What kind of term can you give me? And then most of the time they will weigh those, pros and cons and say, listen, we can get you this rate at this term, and it will, versus what you're doing right now, and you can save $4,000 over the course of your loan. I take that.
I'll take it.
Sign me up.
Right, exactly. Where do I sign?
And you wouldn't believe how often we go into that case.
That's incredible.
But frankly, even if it's $500,
Sure.
a lot of times that means
Right.
a lot of a lot for
Absolutely.
people. That's well, it used to be 10 tanks of gas, but now probably it's a
few.
little less. But
Yeah.
anyway, it all helps.
What about, are there fees or penalties if you do pay off your current loan?
Most financial institutions will not have a fee to pay off your auto loan. When it comes to fees, like I said, usually the only things are administrative to the state, that you have to get a new title, or sometimes that's not always the case. Again, find out, but usually it's minimal. It's not. We're not talking about you have to get a whole new appraisal, or you have to
Right.
get all these documents that you have to get with mortgages. It's different and much easier and much less expensive to refinance an auto.
Does age or mileage matter when it comes to refinancing?
Sometimes, it can look at it, but the bottom line is you've gotten a loan on it. So probably you're in a situation where, obviously, if you've gotten in an accident and it's not worth what it used to be worth, that will impact how much money you can borrow, of course. But again, that's where those conversations are so important. You take a look at it, and is it worth it? Does it have the value that I thought it had? And you figure out what's the best financial move for you. We're also talking about motorcycles too. Since we're going into the springtime,
Yeah.
this also applies to motorcycles. You can refinance your new or used motorcycle loan, just the same process as an auto loan.
We talked about having equity, but what if you're upside down? First of all, what does it mean when you're upside down? And then, can you even refinance in that
You can
case?
look again, creativity, having
Yeah,
those
creativity, yeah.
one-on-one individual conversations. Everybody's got a different situation. When you're upside down, you owe more money than it's worth. People find that in housing. People find that in cars a lot more than they used to. So you want to try to figure out a situation that maybe it's consolidating some of your debts, and maybe you have a lot of equity in your house, and you can, again, there are conversations that can take into account that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to financing, when it comes to refinancing. So I think it's really important that you find a financial institution that will, first of all, have a conversation, second of all, will listen and realize that this is your situation. Everyone's situation is different, and there's no judgment. And I think a lot of people are like, well, I'm upside down. I'm not in a good situation.
But you're here to help, right? That's your whole
that's
goal.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
We want to have that conversation. We want to help. And I think what's most important for us is, if we can't help you, we will tell you that. If you're in a situation where your loan and your term and your rate are really good, we'll say, stay where you are right now.
Yeah.
And, I think the hope is that when you're buying a different, situation, and you're searching for an auto loan, you'll remember that. And I think that's important. But a lot of times refinancing can make a big difference, especially with your monthly payment. I mean, with the way vehicles are these days, new, used, whatever, you're talking a lot more payment, a
Right.
lot higher payment than you used to be.
And people are keeping cars longer,
Right.
for sure.
Right.
Okay, so if anybody is listening to this and saying, you know what, actually, I think this is a good idea. I might want to refinance my car. What's the first thing that they should do?
The first thing they should do is either go online. It's an easy 24/7 app that we have. You can fill it out. We'll get back to you usually the next day, if not that day, depending on what time of day. Make a call, stop by a branch, have a conversation, get that conversation started. There's no application fee.
You're right.
So you can see what that process might look like, and then someone will walk you through that process. And then, again, usually there's a comparison of this is what I'm paying now, this is what I'd like to pay, but this is what I can afford. And then, hopefully we can find a place in between. But, auto lending is one of those things that it's usually your second highest expense next to housing. And if you can lower that cost and still be in a good situation and maybe give yourselves a little bit of financial flexibility, that certainly is a conversation worth having.
Boy, it's a lot to think about.
It is a lot to think about.
And we do know that the folks at Town and Country Federal Credit Union are there to help. Just such a
Absolutely.
great resource.
Absolutely. And auto lending is one of those areas that traditionally we can save consumers hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, because it's what we do. And, at the end of the day, we want someone's financial journey, pun intended, to give them financial flexibility and to keep more money where it belongs, and that's with them.
Awesome. Well, Jon, thanks so
Always
much.
a pleasure.
Always appreciate your expertise.
Happy driving.
Happy driving indeed. And hopefully saving while
Yes,
driving
yes.
too. Of course, we'll have more information as well on WGME.com.
This has been a Financial Matters streaming event sponsored by Town and Country Federal Credit Union. To learn more, visit WGME.com and search for Financial Matters. Thank you for watching.